We're a Houston act right here in Houston, and they would come home from school, and their dad, Beyonce's dad, would make them rehearse, and they had a heavy, strong rehearsal schedule, and they would get a dinner break for 1 hour, like it was a real job. And while they had dinner, they would watch Wishbone on Channel 8. Well, after Wishbone, you know what was on after Wishbone? Weeknight Edition. Well, they didn't want to let Dad know that the show was over because they didn't want to go back to doing their... So they would stay and watch Weeknight Edition.
Get out of here.
So they knew who we were. Well, jump forward a bunch of years, and I have the opportunity when Destiny's Child had reunited to interview them. And Kelly and Beyonce were acting all kind of giggly and chatting. And Laura Lucas, our producer at the time, went over to find out if everything was okay. And I can't remember if it was Beyonce or Kelly, but one of them said, "Oh my God, we've watched Ernie on TV for all these years, and we're really nervous about being interviewed by him." They used to watch Weeknight Edition every day, so they knew who we were.
Oh, I can't wait to call my kids.
You can't wait to call Beyonce.
Well, that's
this
true.
is Doris Childress, and she'll be like...
that's one more mark in my street cred
there
profile.
You go.
Yeah. Well, one more thing about Beyonce. I don't know if you remember, on the red carpet, she wore this really, it was a couple of years ago, black tight-fitted gown, but it had this gold lame halo around the collar. Uh-huh. Well, I did it first. That was my prom dress. Believe it or not, that was my prom dress. I'm gonna send it to you.
Please do. And when you do, we'll post it up online so people can see the Beyonce's inspiration, Doris Childress.
But she wore it best.
Oh no, I highly doubt that. A couple comments we have been getting in here. There is accepting my challenge. So I've got to wonder which challenge it was. I put two out there. Do something positive for someone that could use the help was one challenge, and the other one was make sure you're registered to vote and get someone else registered to vote.
Or it could be the third challenge.
Which was the third challenge?
Donating to Houston Public Media.
Yeah, you could donate.
I think that was the challenge they accepted. That's the one we want you to accept.
We want you to accept all of them. You have a very busy weekend in front of you. So that leads us right into what are our weekend plans?
What are you doing?
We want to know what you're doing. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Tell us what you've got planned for the weekend. For me this weekend, first up, I am going to see, we had them on the show, Cone Man Running is doing To Kill a Mockingbird. I would tell you should go and see it too, but my understanding is it's all sold out for the rest of the run. But it's over on Spring Street in the Spring Street Studios, Cone Man Running. So I'm going to go see To Kill a Mockingbird. And then tomorrow night, where they're not all sold out, so you can still get tickets. They're still doing the new Tamari Cooper show at Catastrophic Theater over at Match, and I'm going to go back for my third time to see the show.
Oh, wow. You're going to have a busy weekend.
It is, yeah. And then on Sunday, maybe I'll make a pizza. I've gotten big into pizza making. You don't know this about me.
You got your own pizza oven?
Oh, yeah. I got a couple of them.
Invite me.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I'm not supposed to talk about that. What are you doing this weekend? What are your last minute plans?
You know what? I'm going to take it easy because I just flew back in from Boston with my daughter. Another brag moment. But I'm going to move on from there. You know what? I don't think you know it, but I learned to swim 2 years ago.
You didn't like swimming.
But I learned. I'm not great, but I learned to swim. So I think I'm going to take a little dip in the pool. As a matter of fact, my kids are like my safeguards. You know, they watch me. But this is the deal, Ernie. I don't venture from 4 feet. I go from 4 to 3, and I put on my mermaid show, and I have music and lights, and it's just really, really wonderful. So I'm probably going to put on one of my mermaid shows this weekend and
now
float.
See, that's the invitation I want.
You want to see
I want to see your mermaid show.
Oh, no problem. I've got great music going too.
Well, that's great, and it's fun to get out and to enjoy it. But also, I like the idea that this is going to come out sounding worse than I meant.
Okay, let me hear it.
Later in life, you've taken on a new hobby.
Ooh, it was the emphasis on later in life, new hobbies. Yeah. You know, I was afraid of swimming.
I know.
Because I had that traumatic experience as a teenager.
Yeah.
On a church trip, you know, where God is supposed to be in all of us. And this kid threw me in the 8 feet, and I almost drowned.
I know.
And I never, ever wanted to attempt to swim. But I just decided I'm going to do it. From 4 feet to 3 feet.
Well, good for you. You're building up there. There is something else you always had a fear of, and I just want to know how that's going right now. How are you and the birds doing?
Oh, my God. I had the hardest time in Boston. They're pigeons. They're like walking chickens. And the seagulls, oh my God. Every piece of food that I had in my hand, I was like tucking it under my arm because I saw them swoop down and take food. So I'm just like ducking. My daughter's like, Mom, walk near the wall, walk near the wall. So I did because I don't do birds.
It is an irrational fear.
You remember that time?
We had one in the studio.
No, yeah, but you terrorized me. He did, y'all. He's a good guy, but this one time he was not. He was like, you want the bird? You want the bird? And he was taunting me because the zoo was here and this huge bird was here, but they kept it away.
We also got a text from Chadwick Peters who says, I'm teaching some great young dancers at Houston's Urban Nutcracker Workshop on Sunday at the Stafford Center.
You know, I've never had a chance to see the Urban Nutcracker, and because it's always sold out. And I've
your
always,
tickets now. That's your other goal for the weekend.
It.
Get some tickets.
That's what I'm going to do.
And our goal for the weekend is to hope that we have set you up for a wonderful weekend ahead, that you feel better informed, had maybe a laugh or two with us.
I hope so.
Doris, what a joy to have you sitting here with me again.
This was fun, being here with you.
I hope you'll consider coming back.
I will.
There was a pause there. Did you catch the pause?
And that's a wrap for this edition of the Best of Hello Houston. I'm Jim Kovacic, the executive producer of the show. But of course, I got to thank the Hello Houston team. Garrett Bowman, William Mentivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and our hosts, of course, Ernie Manus, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. And just a quick reminder, you can listen to our live Hello Houston show weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you can also live stream the show at HoustonPublicMedia.org. If you have any comments about Hello Houston or this Best of program, please text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
The Houston Texans want to take that next step in the NFL this season and not just win the division, but go deep in the playoffs. I'm Craig Cohen. We discuss and recap Sunday's season opener against the Rams on Houston Matters, Monday morning at 9 on News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Live Nation, presenting Leon Bridges, The Crooner and the Cowboy, September 21st at Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion. Tickets available at livenation.com. Your NPR station, News 88.7 KUHF Houston, a service of the University of Houston. Get local and breaking news anytime at houstonpublicmedia.org. Listen to us on your favorite devices. Tell your smart speaker to play News 88.7.
It's the Splendid Table from APM, American Public Media. I'm Francis Lamb. When the produce is rocking, when you've got ripe tomatoes and peppers, it's definitely high time for salsa.
One of the things that I love about salsas is that you can take the same ingredients, right? So tomato, onion, garlic, and chile, and either chop them or grind them or blend them and make a fresh salsa. Same 4 ingredients, and boil them and then smash them or blend them, and that is a completely different flavor profile. I think the fresh salsas, each ingredient wants to scream, taste me, taste me. Yeah. When you boil them, the flavors sort of round out and they play more harmoniously with each other.
That's Rick Martinez, the salsa daddy himself. We've also got Chef Sunny Lee with the beautifully creative Korean way with peak season vegetables. It's coming up on the Splendid Table.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Tensions are mounting in Chicago as President Trump ramps up his threats to send the National Guard and immigration officials into the city. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf reports state and local lawmakers are strongly pushing back amid widespread protests across the city this weekend.
Trump says the National Guard will be deployed to fight crime in the city, which he has called a hellhole, even though police data shows violent crime is down in in recent years. Protesters filled the streets of downtown Saturday evening, marching by Trump Tower, carrying signs and banners against troops coming in. Both Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker are strongly against the plan, too. In a post on social media, Pritzker wrote, quote, "The President of the United States is threatening to go to war with an American city. This is not a joke. This is not normal." Johnson posted that Trump wants to, quote, "occupy our city and break our Constitution," and urged Chicago residents to protect each other. Kat Lonsdorf, NPR News, Chicago.
President Trump was questioned by members of the press today about whether he was threatening war with Chicago. He told reporters that his administration is not going to war. He says the goal is to clean up the nation's cities, adding, quote, "That's not war, but common sense." The Prime Minister of Japan says he's planning to resign from office. NPR's Anthony Kuhn reports that he wants to avoid division with the ruling LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party.
Prime Minister Ishiba had been under mounting pressure to resign to take responsibility for his party's defeat in parliamentary elections this year. Japanese voters, fed up with inflation and LDP corruption, led to the party losing its majority in both houses of parliament for the first time since the party was established in 1955. Voters' dissatisfaction with the political establishment is also evident in the rise of Sanseito, an opposition party espousing nationalist, anti-immigrant views. Ishiba is one of 8 of the past 10 Japanese prime ministers who have only served for about a year, and his resignation may spur anxiety about political instability. Anthony Kuhn, NPR News, Seoul.
A Russian missile strike has damaged the main government building in the Ukrainian capital for the first time since the war broke out more than 2 years ago. The Ukrainian Air Force says Russia launched more than 800 missiles and drones. At least 11 people were killed and dozens of others were injured. The BBC's Sarah Rainsford reports.
The fact that a government building was hit, we don't believe there were any casualties, at least not so far as we know yet. But it is symbolic, an attack, a strike right on the heart of government in Kiev does matter because it shows that Russia can get through, it can make it through the air defenses.
The BBC's Sarah Rainsford reporting. This is NPR News in Washington. The office of former President Joe Biden has announced that his presidential library will be built in his home state of Delaware. The library is expected to highlight Biden's decades of public service and civic leadership. He served in the U.S. Senate for more than 30 years. The discovery of a 400-year-old miniature may have solved a mystery about some of William Shakespeare's best-known poetry. Vicki Barker reports from London.
The miniature shows an androgynous young man, glorious copper-colored ringlets cascading over his shoulder. It turned up in the collection of a family linked to the gorgeous Earl of Southampton, Shakespeare's friend and patron, and it's long been speculated possibly the fair youth of Shakespeare's sonnets. What's got scholars excited is the reverse of the portrait, where a red heart was stricken out by a black spear-shaped figure. Shakespeare famously incorporated a spear into his family crest, a visual pun on his name. The theory, Southampton may have gifted the miniature to Shakespeare, who later returned it when the romance turned sour. For NPR News, I'm Vicki Barker in London.
Police in London say they arrested nearly 900 protesters outside Parliament on Saturday. The demonstrators defied a ban on the group Palestine Action, which the government has labeled a terrorist organization. Authorities say they made arrests within minutes as bystanders chanted and held signs in support. I'm Windsor Johnston, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Wallace Foundation, an independent, nonpartisan research foundation collaborating with grantees and partners in the arts, school leadership, and youth development. More at wallacefoundation.org. This is NPR.
The Splendid Table is supported by BetterHelp, committed to helping clients with issues ranging from relationship challenges and goal setting to grief and depression. Learn more at betterhelp.com/public. I'm Francis Lamb, and this is The Splendid Table from APM. When you go to the farmer's market this time of year, when summer and fall blend together, it's just the best. I just love it so much. And maybe you're thinking of tomato sandwiches, or you're looking at the hearty greens and you're thinking of a comforting braise. But maybe you're basking in all this glory and getting a little overwhelmed. Well, later in the show, we'll talk with Chef Sunny Lee of the instantly beloved new restaurant Sun's in New York City, a place specializing in panchan, the many delicious produce-forward side dishes that are key parts of a Korean meal. She'll answer the question of, what do I do with all of this? And here's another question you should be asking. How can I make all this produce melt my face off? Well, the answer to that is make salsa. Salsa is always great, but it's never better than when you have peak produce. It's not just a dip or even a sauce. It's its own food group, according to our good friend Rick Martinez. Rick's new book is called Salsa Daddy, and you're about to find out why. Hey, Rick, it's great to see you.
So good to see you, too. Happy end of summer.
I know. I'm not ready, but we can pretend like we're ready.
Well, luckily where I am, summer really never ends.
Stop.
So
Don't even start.
Yeah.
Don't even start. Oh, we have 10 months of summer. It's fine.
Exactly.
Okay, well, for those of us who are not so blessed to live in the Pacific coast of Mexico, I actually, something I remember distinctly thinking when you first actually started talking to me about wanting to write a book about salsa. It was such a simple thought, but it really crystallized in my mind in a particular way. And it's when you said, salsa literally just means sauce. Mm-hmm. And, there are salsas of all kinds, but when you wrote that, there was a particular salsa that changed your life. And it made you realize that the possibilities with salsa were kind of infinite. So I love your story of that revelation so much. And I actually love the salsa that gave you that revelation so much. Why don't you tell us about that recipe and what it meant for you?
So, I obviously grew up with salsa. My parents had salsas that they made. There was always salsa in the house. There were always salsas at family gatherings. So, I was very much used to the idea of table salsas existing. And I wasn't really aware at that time of the idea of, salsa as sauce. Like we obviously also had guisos and moles and pipianes, but I never thought of those as salsas. And I have a friend in Mexico City who has this amazing taqueria. And he had made me this torta that was really just like smothered in this incredible chicharron, tomato, chile de árbol salsa. And as if that wasn't enough, he then brought out what was essentially this tower of salsas with these beautiful little ceramic bowls, about probably 12 of them. And they were all filled with different salsas. And so, of course, I was like, I'm just going to taste all of them because I want to make sure that I get the perfect salsa for this torta. And there was one that basically it wasn't really a liquid. It was kind of, just holding its own form. And I was like, what is this? And he basically told me it's caramelized onions and serranos. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah. And I tasted it. And imagine the most sublime French onion soup, but with a really sharp kick of a spicy caramelized serrano. So you got all the sweetness and caramelization of the onions, but then this, very Mexican note of, a deeply charred serrano. And it was so incredible. And it just sort of blew my mind. And so the onions were just chopped. So it wasn't, it wasn't pureed. It wasn't pourable. It was, basically like a little spread. And I was just like, had you had this before? Did you what is the genesis of this? And he's like, no, I just like caramelized onions and serranos. And I'm like, okay, well yeah, I get it. I mean, so do I. And why not put that out as a salsa? And I was just like, it's so funny because, I had become so accustomed in the United States to people saying, oh, that's not the way that my family did something, right? You publish a recipe for tamales or for a pozole or a guiso, And, there's always someone that's commenting, that's not the way that you do it. That's not the way they do it in this state or this city or in my family or in this, state in the U.S. And the freedom of this gentleman, a taquero in Mexico City, to just say, you know what? I love this. I'm going to make it. I'm going to put this out for my customers. And it really kind of floored me. Yeah. And I wanted to capture that, not only for myself, but, for my fans and my followers who, cook my recipes. I wanted them to have that same, feeling of freedom to experiment and cook what they like, and then use that as a salsa as well.
Yeah. So now that it's, depending on sort of where you are, but it's late summer, early fall, this is the best time of year at the farmer's market for me anyway. Yes. It's like when you're getting all the amazing produce of summer, you're starting to get a little bit of the fall stuff coming in. And, I walk around, I'm thinking not just what can I do with this produce, what salads can I make, what like roasted vegetables can I make. It's totally changed my brain. I'm thinking all the salsas I can make too. So I walked past my peach orchard farmer the other day, stand, and it reminded me of your salsa tejana, the Texas salsa, the Texan salsa in your book.
Yes.
Tell us about that one.
So this one was really an ode to my father. My father, when I was growing up, he had a pecan orchard and a lot of peach trees. And, so every summer we picked the peaches, and my mom used to make these amazing peach pies and peach cobblers. And then later in the fall, like right around Thanksgiving, my dad and I would walk the pecan orchard and pick and taste all of the different varieties of pecans that he grew. And, and I remember thinking,
rad.
it was incredible because, as a younger kid, I just thought of, nuts. It's just nuts. You buy a bag of nuts at the store and that's that. But when he started growing them, he actually grafted different varieties onto native Texas stock of the trees, and then basically grew like hybrids. And, some of them were like really meaty. Some of them were a little bit more oily. Some of them had really thin shells. And each one had a very distinct flavor. They still tasted like pecans, but some were a little sweeter. Some were a little bit more nutty and more savory. So I wanted, basically to pay homage to that of my father. And I remember thinking, I have no idea if this is going to work or not. And it's either going to be really amazing or really horrible. Because one thing that I have learned while I was writing this book is that, particularly when you make salsa with fruits or anything on the sweeter side, you have to be really aware of balance, because you have, the sweetness, and also because in your mind, right, like for me, pecans and peaches, like I equate with peach cobbler and pecan pie with desserts, right? Your brain automatically wants to go in that direction with whatever you're used to eating. So if you're used to eating strawberry shortcake and you want to make a strawberry pico de gallo, you have to make sure that you pull it into the salsa direction. So that means using onion and garlic and really tempering the sweetness with those sharper flavors. And so I used a lot of lime juice, some orange juice, some charred habaneros. I grilled the peaches, I toasted the pecans, and then ground it up. And it was really, really amazing. The toasted nuts gave this really beautiful counterpoint to the peaches. And then the fruitiness of the habanero and the citrus really played into the fruitiness of the peaches. But because, it obviously had like charred red onion and some charred garlic as well, it definitely played in the salsa space.
Yeah, so it's more savory. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, I think at that moment, the fact that it was, to me, such a successful salsa, it was another moment for me where I was like, I can basically turn anything into a salsa, I've decided. And also that strawberry pico de gallo I mentioned, that is not in the book, but I have done that this summer. The strawberries were so incredible in Mexico this summer. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Why not? It was really, really delicious. Highly recommend. If you have good strawberries, make a pico de gallo. Just replace the strawberries with a tomato.
And that's the Rick Martinez Salsa Daddy origin story. That's how you became the Salsa Daddy. I can do this with anything. Well, actually, funny you mentioned pico de gallo, because I think for a lot of people who, didn't grow up with a lot of Mexican culture or cuisine, that's their first impression of what salsa is. And obviously tomatoes are such an important part of that at this moment in the market, late summer. To me, living in New York, plenty of people get amazing tomatoes far earlier, but our tomatoes really don't get really good, honestly, until September.
Yeah.
So they're amazing now. And rather than make a pico de gallo, we just talked about your father. Your mother's salsa de mesa, table salsa, is so simple and so classic, and it's mostly tomato, right?
Yeah. And she would make this, this was normally a summer version. She had the same basic recipe or formula for her salsa, and then would just change it depending on the season. So my parents had a big garden. So they grew jalapenos, they grew onion, garlic, tomatoes. And so when everything was fresh, she would just go pick it. And there was a little salsa pot. It was just a little saucepan. But that was typically what she made her salsas in. And so I knew when that little pot was on the stove, that it was time to refresh the salsa in the house. And I remember being able to hear when the tomatoes and the jalapenos and the onion were boiling in the water, the lid would kind of bounce up and down and, make this little clicking sound. But yeah, it was just so simple, and I don't think, I know she didn't have that recipe written down. It was just she picked a couple of tomatoes and used a piece of onion and threw in a bunch of jalapenos and covered it in water and then just, boiled it until it was soft. And then she had a molcajete and she just smashed it.
And she strained it out of the water first and then just smashed all the vegetables.
Yeah. It wasn't even really strained because you're not cooking them until they disintegrate. It's just to soften everything up. So it's probably about 10 minutes, until the tomato is soft and the skin is starting to crack. And then, you can use a little bit of that water as well. You can actually save that water because it's basically like a vegetable broth, and use that for soups or rice or pasta.
We're talking to Rick Martinez, author of Salsa Daddy. More with him in a minute. I'm Francis Lamb, and this is The Splendid Table from APM, American Public Media.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. And in today's economy, that creates real challenges for local public media.
Our response to this decision, launching Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund to bridge the gap from the $2.2 million lost annually in federal funding.
No matter what the future holds, you can protect local independent media when you give.
Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Or call 888-909-0887.
Morning Edition takes you across this country and around the world with stories that keep you informed and the context to understand what matters. The news comes at you quickly, but we slow it down to examine each story from different angles and give perspective on what might happen next. A brand new day comes with new possibilities and a new edition of Morning Edition from NPR News.